The subject was an animal training specialist, and she worked a lot with normal family pets like cats and dogs. The client, the insurance company, had got wind that she may be working for another competing company, and they wanted us to verify her activities. At first, this case appeared to be fairly straightforward until I looked up the address on the internet. When I looked up her residence, I discovered she lived in a very rural area, and I knew I was in for a challenge when it came to the follow. I discussed the alternatives with the client, and for the moment, they decided to stick with one investigator. This happens often, folks. Insurance companies don't want to spend more than they have to unless there is proof of reason to do so, and I fully understand their premise on the situation like this. So I got all of my pre-surveillance work done. I got my maps of the area printed out, just in case my GPS didn't work way out there where she lived. I found photos of her on multiple social media sites. Man, I really do love the intel that we can gather on social media these days. And I got vehicles and plates on her, so I knew what she might be driving. I went out a few days prior to the actual surveillance start date to check out the area. I was on another case doing a service of process, so I was kind of in the general area, maybe 20 minutes away, so I figured I would take advantage of that opportunity. This video is sponsored by OREP Insurance and Working PI Magazine. OREP is a leading provider of private investigator liability insurance. Visit orep.org for a quote today. When I got on scene, I observed both of her registered vehicles present there, a sedan and a pickup. I also observed what appeared to be large dog runs out back and multiple horses on the property. The property she owned was about 12 acres, and it sat in a rural subdivision of acreages with about a dozen or so homes there. Now, I had some much needed intel. I got photos of her vehicles so I could easily identify them. I also took note of the vehicles at neighbors' houses too. I knew I would have to sit some distance away at a choke point and wait for her, so knowing when her neighbors came by would be good to know, so I knew who all may have possibly noticed me. A choke point is a spot where you sit where the subject of your investigation will likely have to drive right past you. This is good in many ways, as it almost always guarantees that you will see your subject when they drive by. It is bad in some ways, as it may make you more noticeable to your subject as they drive by. When I set up on a choke point, I prefer to use some type of a guise for my vehicle. My preferred one is using magnetic signs on the side of my car that say road survey. I combine that with a yellow magnetic light on top of my vehicle, and most people do not pay much attention to me. Now, a word of caution, if you're going to use a guise like this, make sure your vehicle matches the guise as well. I have a silver SUV and it works perfectly for that car, but if you have a red sports car, it might look a little awkward. With that type of car, you might want signs for a phony real estate company or something like that, which would be more appropriate. I also recommend to have 2 or more vehicles at your disposal so you can switch them out if necessary if people start to take notice of you. Sometimes doing this and changing up your own appearance, like wearing a ball cap and no glasses in one vehicle and sunglasses and no ball cap in the other, will help make the guys look more real over time. People will think that they saw multiple people out doing the road surveys on multiple days. Okay, day 1 of the surveillance rolls around. I head out early in the morning. I get to the subject residence well before sunrise. As I approach the subdivision, I can see lights on at the subject's residence already. This could be a good sign. There may be early activity. I grab a few seconds of video of the residents and the vehicles, and then I head over to my stationary setup position. When I get to my stationary position, about 3 miles away near a freeway entrance, I get all of my guys' gear out and I get all set up. I am ready to go, folks. I get comfy and I sit and I watch and I wait. And I wait, and then I wait some more. After a few hours went by, I decided to do a quick drive-by, or drive near in this case, to make sure my subject was still home. I knew I could see her driveway where the cars were parked from an irrigation road about a half a mile away, so I didn't have to drive right past her residence. Now, that irrigation road also had a few trees to help give me a little bit of cover as I stopped and grabbed a little bit of video and turned around, so I should be good to go. I arrive at the irrigation road and then grab my video camera and I grab a little video of the vehicles at the residence. And then I see a female subject walking from the dog kennels toward the vehicles. I am like, uh-oh. I get turned around and I hightail it out of there to make sure that I can find a location to pick up a tail down the road. I get about 1.5 miles down the road and I take a side road and I go about a half mile up that and I turn around by a farmhouse where I can see the road my subject lives on. After a few minutes, I see the churning of dust from a vehicle coming over the hill about 1 mile away. I grab my camera, I get zoomed in, and it looks like my subject's pickup truck with her driving. As she gets about a quarter mile away from the intersection, I started heading towards her in the intersection. I had a stop sign, so I knew that she would go right past me most likely, and she did. I was still about 1,500 feet away, so it was doubtful that she would have even taken notice of me. As she drove past, I pulled in behind her at a safe distance, and the chase was on, folks. I followed her right past my original stationary position, which confirmed to me that this was a good place for future surveillance, and then she got on the freeway. We went about 45 minutes to a little town before she pulled off. I was a little worried, as at this point I had been following her for quite a while. As we exited, there was a gas station, so I pulled in there and I watched at a distance for about 10 or 15 seconds until I saw her turn onto a street a few blocks away. Then I continued, and when I passed the street that she turned on, I saw her turning on another street a few blocks away, so I went into the neighborhood to try to find her. After a couple of minutes, I found her vehicle in a driveway at a large house, so I parked about a block away and I set up stationary surveillance. After about 20 minutes, I see her walking towards her vehicle with two large dogs on leashes. At first, I thought she was going to put them into her pickup, but she walked right past the pickup and then turned on the street and started walking right towards me. Oh my goodness, how small can I make myself? I'm thinking. I didn't have my blackouts up and I was pointed right towards her, so all I could really do was sit there. And that's what I did. I sat there and I pretended to be on my phone talking to somebody as she walked right past me. After she went past me, I watched her walk several blocks, then turn a corner and go out of sight. Now, I didn't want to blow my cover and move my car, so I just got my car into blackout mode right there, and then I went on foot surveillance. I got a little bit of video of her at a distance as I paralleled her on a street about 3 blocks away. At each intersection and alleyway, I was able to point my camera towards her as I walked. When I saw her turning back towards the residence where her vehicle was, I made a beeline back to my car. I got to my car. It was all set up for me, so all I had to do was jump in, and I was blacked out. A few minutes go by, and here she goes walking toward the house where she got the dogs. I grabbed my video, and I was very happy that she finally went inside the residence. Then about 10 minutes goes by, and she comes back out with just one dog. Yep, she goes on a walk with the one dog, and wouldn't you know it, she walks right past me again. This time, though, I'm blacked out, so I was able to use my trusty covert camera as she walked right past me to shoot video out of the little peepholes I have in the corners of my window blackouts. As she was walking by, I heard her talking to the dog, giving commands, giving praise. She may be training these dogs. After she went by, she appeared to be taking the same path as before. I didn't want to blow my cover, so this time I stayed put. Sure enough, she came back a little while later, went back inside the residence, then she comes back out with, yep, you guessed it, the other dog. She took that dog for a walk on the same route. I got more video, and then she returned to the residence. After that, she left, and I continued more mobile surveillance. I was pretty nervous now. I had followed her for a good distance already. She'd walked right past my car 3 times, once when I was sitting in the front seat. I followed at a distance, and I successfully followed her to another home a few miles away. The exact same scenario happened there. She went inside, then came out walking a smaller dog. This time I was parked a good distance away and all blacked out, and luckily she did not walk towards me. I did go on foot surveillance again. This time, me and my trusty covert camera got all kinds of video. She went to a nearby park and was definitely training that little dog. After that, she went back home, but I had a lot more surveillance to do on this case. I reached out to my client. I gave them an update. Based on what we got, the client agreed to 3 more days with 2 investigators. All 3 days, we observed and videotaped very similar activity at multiple different residences. The client had us do some interviewing after that too, and some more surveillance. And then they had all they needed to prove that she was indeed working for a competitor. That competitor was her own business, which she had started up, and some of her clients were past clients of her former employer, where she allegedly had got injured.